Hey folks, it's Ray at DCRainmaker.com here, and today I've got the Elite Tuo Trainer, also known as the Toaster. Now this thing actually was announced a year ago, well more than a year ago in fact, at Eurobike 2019, and it's finally shipping starting this past September, and it's more widely available now here in October, and hopefully continuing on to the rest of the fall. Now you may be thinking, why and who is making a wheel-on trainer? And certainly wheel-on trainers aren't as common as they used to be, but wheel-on trainers still have a purpose in life in the general kind of indoor smart trainer realm. Namely, they're cheaper. And now in case you're wondering what a wheel-on trainer is, this means that the wheel stays on when you put it on the trainer. So here's my bicycle wheel, and it's on the trainer itself. Compared to a direct drive trainer where you take the wheel off. Here, let me just grab one real quick. This is a direct drive trainer. In this case, you take your rear wheel off and you place your chain directly on the cassette and you're good to go. Pretty straightforward, right? Okay, before we get too deep into this, a quick specifications check here. It can simulate gradient up to 10%, so inclines up to 10%. Its accuracy is plus or minus 5%, which is on the outer edge of things, but it's norm for this sort of setup here, a wheel-on type trainer. Handle up to 1,300 watts of resistance, which if you can do 1,300 watts, you're definitely going to know that. I top out around 1,000 or so, so it's not really an issue for the vast majority of people. And plus, and Bluetooth smart connectivity includes a through-axle adapter here, as well as a quick release adapter in the box, which is kind of handy. Beyond that, it's pretty much all the normal specs you'd expect. So the first thing to dive into is getting it out of the box and assembling it. Now the box part of that is pretty straightforward. It does not come pre-assembled, which is pretty much the norm at this sort of price point for trainers. Usually there's some assembly required. The problem is, in this case, once I got all the parts out, still not a problem until I opened the manual. And you've got to understand, this is special. Now, before I make fun of them, and I'm definitely about to make fun of them because they kind of deserve it here, note that the installation isn't that hard. If you can assemble like a child's toy and put batteries in it, you can do this just fine. It doesn't take that long either if you don't like get too distracted with this manual. If you just listen to what I'm about to say, you can probably get it assembled in like 5 to 7 minutes. But we have to listen to what I'm about to say first. I'm going to read like 1 or 2 verses from this manual. If the lever reference W starts pressing against a quick release in the advanced work position, picture 38, screw the right bushing pin reference Y, picture 39, so that the lever reference, what the, I can't even say this. Like I can't even read this. It is so unbelievably bad. So the good news is it's really not all that difficult. All you need to know is what size tire you have. And essentially, if you've got a road bike tire, you're going to install it such that the bottom of the unit goes in this hole right here, as opposed to the hole that is right there. That's it. If you got a mountain bike tire, you can do it the opposite side. The other thing you need to know is that there are actually 3 knobby things here. There is one knob, this one here, that tightens the entire thing against your wheel. That's the last step you're going to do. Don't even worry about that for right now. Then you've got this one down here. This knob tightens the entire toaster against the frame. The whole point of that is to keep it from wobbling. You only do that once. And then there's a knob right here that moves this entire thing backwards and forwards. And if you see, if I go like this, it just releases the wheel, and eventually you're gonna get it up close to it, and that's it. Those are the things you need to know. The instructions are useful for like putting all the screws in, but they're really complicated in a lot of other ways. Okay, now that we have the Tuo all assembled, you're gonna pop your bike in there. There's this lever right up here that you see. You'll simply loosen it, put the bike in, and then tighten it back up again. Pretty straightforward. And then you've got this lever right here and this knob right here. So in this case, this is the unlocked position. So you're gonna go ahead and ensure that the bicycle tire just barely touches the roller, which is the red thing right there. And once that's done, you'll simply lock it. That's it. That's all there is to it. Now, there is a bit of a calibration procedure too. What you want to do now is warm up for about 10 to 15 minutes on it so that it warms up your tire and the roller and all the goodness. And then once that's done, you're going to go ahead and unlock it again, and you're going to readjust it. You're going to find that the position has changed, which is fine. That's perfectly normal. You only have to do this once, and then adjust this so it just barely touches again, lock it, and now you're done. At that point, do a calibration spin down procedure within the Elite app, or you can do it within TrainerRoad or Zwift or anything like that. And your calibration should be pretty good. Now, they do recommend that you go ahead and pump your tire to 110 PSI, which should be 7.5 bar, I believe. Once you've done that, if you do that same pumping up every single time to the exact same 110 PSI, you'll find that the calibration stays exactly the same. In fact, I did the calibration a month ago now, and I have not recalibrated again. And you'll see in the accuracy results, to kind of foreshadow a bit here, no problems. just kind of work. Speaking of things that just kind of work, if you're finding this video useful or interesting or entertaining, then go ahead and just simply whack that like button at the bottom there. It really helps out this video and the channel quite a bit. So once we've got the bike installed on the Tuo, then it's time to pair it up in your app of choice. It transmits on both AMP Plus as well as Bluetooth Smart using all the standard protocols. So AMP Plus FEC for trainer control and power and speed and cadence, and then Bluetooth Smart FTMS for the exact same thing, as well as Bluetooth Smart power and cadence and speed. Like, it's got all the things. You're not gonna have a problem there. Okay, with that all set, let's jump on the bike and get rolling. Okay, so here we are with the bike already set up on the trainer. Now, in this case, I've done a workout this morning. So I did a TrainerRoad workout, and now I'm gonna go ahead and show you a little bit on Zwift, and primarily show you the road feel side of it, as well as a noise side of it. So one of the things I always ensure I do with the Tuo is to get the tire pressure to the exact same point every single time, the same point that I calibrated to back a while ago now. And so in that case, Elite recommends 110 PSI. You can look at your gauge and see what that equals to and whatever measurement thing that you use. So as long as you use the same thing every single time, and then you do your warm up back when you did your calibration, warm up about 10 to 15 minutes, then everything should be the same each time. It actually works out pretty darn well. So in this case, we're going to hop on, and you'll be able to hear what it sounds like as I spin up. Now, right now you're listening to, by the way, the lav mic, so it'll sound a little bit quieter. Later on, we'll switch to the on-camera mic so you can hear that. So let's get going. So at the moment, I'm in my small chain ring up here. So I'm gonna go ahead and go into the big chain ring. There we go. I'm gonna bring the speed up here. And you can hear that now the trainer is kind of ramping up a little bit there. Give it a couple seconds of that. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the road feel. And when I talk about road feel, I'm basically talking about how the acceleration and deceleration feels like. So in this case, if I go like this, does it feel smooth? And then when I back off a little bit, does it feel smooth as well? It feels kind of like a slowly letting back down again, as opposed to just the wattage drops off. Because when you're outside, you feel that acceleration and deceleration, and that's what I want to feel here. And for the most part, this is really, really good. Like, this is, in a lot of ways, rivaling some of the $1,000 trainers out there, which is rare for a wheel-on trainer compared to a direct drive trainer. So, do another little sprint here. And I feel that acceleration kind of pull beneath me. It's really nice. And then let off there as well. It just feels really, really good. Now, the next bit is the sound, and that's something that's sound is always driven on a smart trainer by the speed, not by your wattage. I can be in a small gear and doing high wattage in erg mode, for example, and have low sound. You'll see that switch down to the chain ring there. That front chain ring, the small one, the volume goes down. Now, in order to listen to sound, I gotta turn off my lav mic and go with the on-camera mic. So switching over to that now. And now you can hear the lovely echo-ness that is the DCRK. So this is like a worst case scenario. And there's that same sound again. Well, let's kick up the speed a little bit here. There we go, 20 miles an hour, about 30 kilometers an hour. And we'll throw down a bit of a sprint. So yeah, it's not quiet. I mean, it's a wheel-on trainer. It's gonna have that contact there, that friction. It's definitely not the quiet trainers that you would see in the last couple of years, but it's also not a $1,000 trainer, and it's not a direct drive trainer. If you're out in the garage with headphones on, you're never gonna notice. Now, one thing I would know is that it's really hard for me to test vibrations here because this is just a gigantic concrete floor, but I can feel the vibrations on this, especially on the sprints. And I can guarantee you, if I was like on a wooden apartment floor that's not, super well built, that my neighbors would absolutely feel this. I can feel it. So let's head on back to the desk and talk about accuracy. Okay, so I've got a number of data sets to look at, and we're gonna start diving into all of those. But sort of the overarching arc, if you will, of accuracy is that it seemed to vary depending on whether or not it was warmed up. For example, the very first toast of the day took about 1 minute and 10 seconds. Yet the second toast, just a minute or two later, took about 1 minute and 5 seconds. And then it dropped down to 57 seconds and even 54 seconds. And we're talking a pretty big accuracy spread here. Oh, you mean this? Yeah, it's fine. Here, let me show you. So here we are, for example, on Zwift. And in this case, you'll see over the course of this route, this is the Titans Grove route, which has some great flats for high flywheel speed stuff, and then some hill climbs and all that goodness. Plenty of good testing grounds there. And you see that it's really darn close across the board. So if I crack up in the very beginning here, this first like 6 to 8 minutes, what you'll notice is that it's a little bit offset for that first 6 to 10 minutes in general. And that's because it's warming up. Remember, we calibrated this at between 10 and 15 minutes, and that's sort of when the temperature stabilizes. So for the most part, for most of your workouts in that first like 10 minutes, the accuracy might be a little bit wobbly. And you can see that here with that blue line being above the rest. But as we go along, it gets closer and closer until it joins the rest and it looks basically just like them. And we see this pattern over the rest of the workout, and in particular across these sections of kind of varying intensity levels. The one catch that I did notice is that sometimes when I do a minor surge, not a full-out sprint, but like a minor like 500-600 watt surge, it is a little bit late in there, and you can see that right there where it dips underneath the rest of them in that blue line. But it's fairly rare in the grand scheme of things. I've also seen that a couple times in that same scenario where it'll overshoot slightly above that. But again, it's a +5. But again, it's plus or minus 5% for this trainer, so it's not like what you expect from a $1,300 trainer or a $1,200 trainer. Yet despite that, its accuracy results are beating some recent bikes I've tested, as well as even some trainers I've tested that cost $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. So keep that in mind. If we switch over to TrainerRoad now for that one, you'll see that same kind of warm-up period right here where it's a bit more off, but then it stabilizes after that for the interval portions of it, the work portions of it. However, the non-work portions down here at roughly 120 watts or so weren't quite as accurate. And I suspect that's mostly to do with speed. On a lot of wheel-on trainers like this one right here, the speed will actually impact accuracy. Now, I can increase the speed of the tire, but when I do that, I tend to lose control over erg mode. And so in this case, I go ahead and I put it in the front chainring so I get more control, which means that my upper intervals right there are spot on. They're super accurate. They're very, very close, within a watt across the board, but my lower ones aren't quite as accurate. So you got to kind of balance that a little bit. In my case, I don't really care about the low wattage ones because it's just during recovery. So if it's off by a little bit, no big deal. And I want the upper ones to be nailed, and it does that here just fine. If I were to go ahead and speed up the tire, I probably have both sets of those accurate, but it isn't quite as responsive. So if you're doing like a bunch of 30 by 30s, it might not be as ideal there versus something that's a longer time period where it can stabilize a little bit more. Also, if we dip down here to cadence, it's pretty much spot on the entire time, plus or minus 1 RPM across the entire thing, no problem. Overall, it's pretty good. I'm not seeing any accuracy issues that are like big ticket items. Of course, again, it is a $500 smart trainer, so expect things will be a little bit less accurate in general than something that's higher end. But within this range, it's pretty impressive. Okay, so there you go, a complete look at the Elite Tuo Toaster Trainer. Overall, not too shabby. I think the biggest takeaway from this is the road feel is really good on this, like really, really, really good. Whether it's $500 or $1,000, it's impressive road feel on this particular trainer. Now, whether or not you'll be able to find this trainer on stock anywhere, like every other smart trainer right now, it's pretty tough. But if you can, like there's not too many compromises there to be made. So thank you for watching, and if you found this video useful or interesting or something like that, simply whack that like button at the bottom or hit subscribe for plenty more sports technology goodness. With that, have a good one.